Welcome to Cyprus News by FinancialMirror.tv. Banks and cooperatives pledged to accelerate efforts to reduce interest rates in Cyprus after the government said it will inject an additional liquidity of €1 billion into the banking system. At a time when the ECB borrowing rate is 1.25%, while the deposit rate facility rate is at 0.25%, banks in Cyprus are offering loans at 5 and 5.5%, plus a 3 or 4% spread for a total of 9% and above, while for deposits, the minimum offered is 3.5%. The Cyprus finance minister said the government will issue a short-term bond to Cypriot banks worth €1 billion, which expires in late December, at a rate of 1.5%. This bond can be used by the Cypriot banks as collateral to borrow from the European Central Bank at a rate of 1.25%, while the government will deposit these funds in the Cypriot banks at 1.75% until the end of December. This is the second time Cyprus has issued bonds to domestic banks after a €1.4 billion bond issued last December. Furthermore, the finance minister said the government will proceed as planned with the issue of a €1 billion bond to international markets in a bid to cover financing needs, which will reach €2.5 billion in the next 10 months. The state-owned Electricity Authority of Cyprus is embarking on a nationwide plan to reassess all of its properties in order to better utilize them and increase revenue for the power utility. This falls within a general plan to improve earnings by divesting away from the conventional oil-based power production into new areas, such as alternative sources of energy, for which it is establishing wholly owned subsidiaries. It is also considering developing the vacant property opposite its old Nicosia head offices into a commercial building with offices, shops, and parking spaces. Tourism arrivals in Cyprus fell by just over 15% in the first quarter, reaching 194,127 compared with 228,962 in the corresponding period of 2008. The performance was even worse in March as arrivals fell 16%. The main problem is a collapse in the UK market, which accounts for more than half of all tourist arrivals. A combination of recession and a weak national currency have left Cypriot holidays beyond reach. A decrease of 27% was recorded in tourist arrivals from the UK to 41,000. On the other hand, there was an increase of 25% in arrivals from Germany to 12,800. Meanwhile, the outbound market has also slipped. In February, 68,500 residents of Cyprus returned from a trip abroad compared with 74,800 in the corresponding month last year, thus recording a decrease of just above 8%. The governor of the Central Bank of Cyprus said that the forecast issued last December for a 2% growth rate in 2009 is too optimistic, noting that the ECB forecasts that the euro area's GDP will decline by 2.7% and the OECD estimates that GDP will shrink by 4%. The governor noted that given the dramatic developments in the euro area, but also in the UK, show at least the trends which someone would expect in relation with a possible deterioration of financial indicators. Cyprus hosts between 90,000 to 150,000 rounds of golf a year in its three main golf courses, according to the Trade and Tourism Minister, who added that about 60,000 of those games are played by tourists. The minister said that golf courses attract high-income tourists who stay in 4- and 5-star hotels and spend much more than the average holidaymaker on the island. Cyprus has 3 main golf courses and a number of other non-commercial courses, while another 15 are planned. Meanwhile, the Cyprus Tourism Organization, in cooperation with Hellas Golf, recently organized a press trip for a team of golf journalists from the United Kingdom. The Cyprus Hotel Association has issued its new summer catalog for domestic tourism. Special prices are being offered to Cypriots and permanent residents by a record 120 Cyprus hotels ranging from 1 up to 5 stars, plus all 3 grades of hotel apartments. The offer runs to October 30 and includes packages starting from €27 per night per couple for a studio and from €30 per night for a double room in a hotel. Economic news from Cyprus continued the recent gloomy trend, reinforcing the forecast calling for a lower growth rate of 1% for 2009. Industrial and manufacturing production collapsed in January, declining by 9.8%. The value of both imports and exports in Cyprus dived in February compared with the same period of the previous year. Imports fell 20% to €414 million, while exports fell 19% to €74 million. The trade deficit therefore shrank by 20% to €340 million. Retail sales volumes in January fell by 0.6% compared with the same month of 2008. This was less of a decline than in December, when retail sales fell by year-on-year by 2.8%, and in November, when they had fallen by 4.8%. On a positive note, more Cypriots walk than one might think, according to the Passenger Mobility Survey. According to the survey, 78.5% of Cyprus households have members who walk. However, the statistical service adds that this is usually for leisure purposes. Still, in a country with barely any public transport, a fairly high proportion of 19.8% use public transport. A slightly different picture emerges when the data are recorded according to the number of trips. Here, 84.4% of the total number of trips were made by motorized transport, and only 1.1% of the trips were made by public transport. In other words, even if almost 1 in 5 people use public transport occasionally, this accounts for only a tiny minority of actual trips. Thanks for watching FinancialMirror.tv.